And when my colleague asked you what you did, you went on to say, well, I wasn't thinking, and da, 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 da. That's not what he asked you, though. He asked you what you did. And what you did was barge into this innocent lady's house, almost choked her to death, tied her up for hours, asking her for money, telling her, and then when waiting for her kid to come home so that you can tie him up and and if her husband came home, you were going to tie him up too and stuff them all inside a closet or something. And I mean, you had this whole plan.
It wasn't a plan. I didn't know what to do afterwards. Once I did it, I shouldn't have hurt them. I shouldn't have done anything in that.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of this man who committed a home invasion in 2011. Now, this home invasion, it was a thing of nightmares. It was so horrible that the judge gave him a 20-year plea deal. Now, to add insult to injury, this man came up for a commutation of his sentence just 6 months prior to this parole hearing. You see, he said the 20-year sentence, it was too harsh. I never expected to get the 20 years when I had my plea deal. So please commute my sentence, make it shorter. Now, the parole board, they agreed. They gave him 4 years off of that sentence. And do you know what he does next? After being given the gift of 4 years off, it made him all of a sudden mathematically parole eligible. So just 6 months later, he shows up for a parole hearing. He shows up asking for another bite of the apple, saying, okay, you commuted my sentence, now give me parole. And it's that audacity that I think pisses off this parole board. Now, we have all the footage for that commutation hearing from 6 months ago. As a matter of fact, Sir Richard had it flagged and highlighted it red and said, Mandy, you have to cover this hearing. This is disturbing. And I just somehow missed it. We have so much going on that I missed it. Now, of course, I watched that full commutation hearing and I watched this parole hearing, and I was going to merge them together for a 2-hour-long hearing. But I took a step back and I said, you know what? It does. We actually don't need to do it. So we don't need to play the entire hearing. What I'm going to do is play the victim impact statement. It's not from the victim itself. They actually couldn't get in touch with the victim, but it's from the assistant district attorney. She lays out all the facts of the crime and just how horrible it is. And then I play the decision from the board, the reason to just commute his sentence. And just so please keep in mind, listen to me when I say this. This little clip that I'm playing from you is from his commutation sentence that took place in June of 2024. We're going to listen to about 5 minutes, I don't know, give or take, of that. And then we are going to come to the present day 2025, where he takes that second bite of the apple for the parole hearing. So please keep that in mind when you're watching. I know that some of us are multitasking and might miss it. But what's going on here? Okay, I gave the warning. All right, now let's jump in.
Thank you, Officer Williams.
We're good to go. Okay, we are. Oh, sorry.
June 12, 2024 commutation session of the Connecticut Board of Pardons and Parole is now back in session.
Thank you. We're back from executive session. I had one more question, Mr. Down. Where do you plan to live when you're released?
I don't have a place per se right now. I was hoping to go to halfway house to start, for now to get ready, and from there, get a place to stay.
Okay. All right. So at this time, I'm going to turn to the Office of Victim Services for confirmation that we did outreach and we have no input today. Ms. De Jesus, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, board members. That is correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we have the State Attorney's Office present here with us today, Attorney Walcott.
Thank you very much. I do want to speak out. Members of the board, are you there?
Yes.
Sorry, phone dropped. Um, Thank you so much for having me on today. I do want to just speak out and ensure that there are some pieces of the record that are clear for whatever decision the board makes today. I want to highlight from a review of the file of a few things. Number one, I did hear Mr. Doan say that his intent that day was to engage in a plan of insurance fraud. And while that was clear through the documents that were submitted and going back to the police reports, that was not as clear at the time that this crime was committed. There are a few pieces that I want to highlight. Number one, Mr. Doan went to that home several times. The victim's family, and I believe in particular the husband, stated that Mr. Doan had called them on occasion, would call and kind of check in and give an excuse for a job that was going to be delayed. He would call out of the blue and just kind of do these periodic check-ins. And the family actually had legitimate work for him to do. He had done some work in the house. They were looking to have him do additional work, and he wasn't engaging in that work, but he was kind of checking back in every so often. So when he went to the victim's home on the particular day of the incident, a few things that should be noted. He did not drive his van. He took a bus. He went there. I know that one of the commission members had talked about the rope. He said, oh, it was part of how he lived, but he has rope that's cut in sizes to tie up people's hands. There's a lot of premeditation and the factual and the police reports that are included in this file. And that rope is definitely a part of it. He went to their home several times. And at one point, I believe he said he didn't expect them to be home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if the intent is to go there and have the family agree to engage in an insurance fraud scheme with him, why be surprised that they're home, or why go at a time when they're not home? So he went there with either the intent to ransack and rob the home, or he went there for exactly what he encountered on that day. The wife, victim, home alone and vulnerable. What happened in that house is without a doubt life-changing for these victims. I read through the sentencing transcript. When Mr. Doan pled, he pled to arrange. He entered guilty pleas, and he was to receive a sentence up to 25 years. I think the judge said somewhere in the 10 to 20 to serve, and there would be a period of special parole. What the board does not know is that at sentencing, the victim was so emotional, so overcome, so filled with trauma and grief that she couldn't read her statement. The prosecutor in the courtroom couldn't read the statement. The statement was ultimately read by the victim's advocate, who was present and who was able to get through all the emotion that this woman poured out. She was strangled in the foyer of her own home by a contractor that she had hired to do work in the home. She was then tied up and placed in a closet. Her 13-year-old son was tied up and placed in a closet beside her. She thought she was going to die. She could not breathe. She thought he was going to choke the life out of her. She was then taken to a bank, and it's interesting, all of these facts lead up to and have the opening of, another crime that occurred in Connecticut, right? We saw similar facts in the Cheshire case. She makes it. She lives. She gives him a ride to Vernon. He then corresponds with the husband, has a plan to have him come out and meet him. Ideally, all of this is for money. That's one thing that has been consistent. Mr. Doan fell on hard times financially, and this was his response. The thing that concerns me is that while, yes, he has served 12 and a half years, and yes, the minimum sentence for a home invasion is 10 years, this is not an ordinary home invasion. This is not and I don't even know how we say an ordinary or run-of-the-mill home invasion, but this was a home invasion that was traumatizing to this entire family, husband, wife, child, right? So it's not just something that happened. It wasn't this casual conversation the way Mr. Doan lays it out of, oh, I need 30,000. Well, do you want 10,000 in cash or 10,000 in a bank check? This was a violent offense. And it had lasting trauma and repercussions. But most importantly, and what I'd really like the board to consider, is that financial difficulties come in a blink. In a blink. when we look at cases of homicides and we have the 19-year-old who's out on the street corner who is engaged in substance abuse and pulls a trigger and changes the trajectory of his life forever in 10 seconds, that's one type of case. This case, we have a premeditated plan, leaves his car behind, takes a city bus, goes to these people's home. He knows them. He's been in there before. The wife in her statement at one point says, she says, just take the money, and he goes upstairs to the master bedroom as if he knew that's where she kept the money. And she said, well, no, the envelope's in the study. And then he went around. As she's sitting in the closet, he's ransacking their house, rummaging through it, looking for money. This is a terrifying event. But I go back to financial difficulties happen in a blink. You lose your job, your financial situation changes, things happen. How is Mr. Doan accounting for that? He's going to go back into a business that puts him back inside of people's homes, that puts him back into the trades, and his answer is to set it up in his daughter's name. Where does he plan on living when he's released? He doesn't know. He's hoping for a halfway house. This is a path full of uncertainty that is going to be full of difficulties, and it's going to lead us back here. While 20 years, the board decides 20 years, he hasn't had a ticket since he's been in for 12 years, great. We would be saying after 12 years, like he did to that woman, child, that family, 12 years, released to the community, zero supervision on a path of uncertainty, uncertain housing, uncertain business, back out with nothing. And so while the family isn't here, I don't know why. I did not reach out to them independently. I do know that their comments at sentencing were very poignant. They did not feel like 25 years was enough. And so I'm sure they're not going to feel like 12 and a half are enough. But I thank the board for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Attorney Wilcott.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're done with all of our questioning and statements. At this time, the panel is going to deliberate about your case. Everyone's free to listen to our deliberation. In the matter of Cong Doan, MA number 386888, this panel finds that there are exceptional and compelling circumstances that would warrant commutation of your sentence. I will move. We have three concurrent sentences here: home invasion and 2 counts of kidnap first. They're each 20 years. So they're all the same sentence. So I'll make a motion to commute the overall sentence from 20 years to 16 years, followed by 5 years of special parole, which is a reduction of 4 years in your overall sentence. Is there a second to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you have questions, sir? Do you understand?
I do.
Okay, so we recognize the work that you've put in. What we really want you to do now is prepare yourself for when you do get out there, okay? Do the research, talk to people, try to set up as many resources as you can for yourself, because you'll need the help. And the last thing we want is for you to go out there and fail. So, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
We wish you the best, sir.
Thank you,
Attorney Talbot, Attorney Walcott.
Okay, so they decided to commute his sentence. They felt that, you know, his sentence was too long. Let's shorten it up a few years. But what he did then after that, regardless of how you feel about their decision, is that he applied for parole immediately after that hearing, and here he is with this parole opportunity of in 2025, right? So it's 6/12/2024 where he applies for the commutation, and then 1/22/2025 he has a parole hearing, and that's because he kind of played or manipulated the system. As soon as he became parole eligible, he now has a right to parole, regardless of any technical or legality, right? It's just part of the Connecticut Constitution, so to speak. So this guy is wow, he is something else. And let's see how the parole board handles that. Now with that, Let's jump in.
Cong D 386-888.
Hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Cong D DOC, MA number 386-888. He's serving a sentence of 16 years followed by 5 years special parole for home invasion, 2 counts kidnapping first. As of today, records reflect the parole eligibility date of June 19, 2025. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender, has been reviewed and shows the offenders completed the following programs: anger management, voices, basic fatherhood, and carpentry 1. Utilizing a statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the low range of historic recidivism. So this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. I just want a chance to express my to the victims and my family that for all the things I did. I can't make things right for what I did in the past, but it bears on me every day, and I try to do everything I can with that in mind to do no more harm each day. So I'm hoping that, my time here and what I've done, you can see I won't make a mistake again to ever come back to this place. I'll remember every moment of here. I hope the victims can forgive me one day. But if they can't, I hope that they can understand I'm going to do everything I can to make things as good as I can for everybody else. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doan, for that opening statement. We have prepared some questions in preparation for today's hearing. And after reviewing your file, each of us will take an opportunity to ask those questions. When we're done, we'll deliberate and give you our decision, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sosowskis, we'll start with the questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, sir.
Good day.
This is all very concerning, obviously, reading through this whole entire incident. And, just trying to understand because, what happened and how you got to this place. But can you just explain to us in your own words what happened on this day and what was going on in your mind?
My mind was just out of the ordinary. It wasn't thinking properly. That's the problem I had, was I was trying to do too much and trying to do, taking care of stuff instead of asking for help. I went there thinking that I was going to do in the wrong way anyways, an insurance fraud. When the person said no, something inside me snapped. I said, I try to do everything in this world for people. This one time I need help. They had all the right to say no. I just, at that moment, I couldn't understand why. And it took me a long time now to understand everything I did that day was wrong. I should have stepped away. I should have just asked for help when I needed help. But I took the wrong path, and it led to a lot of people being hurt. It changed the lives of the victims, which I should never have done. My actions should never affect somebody's life in the negative, and it did that day. It not just them, but my whole family, everybody who cared about me. And I live with that every single day, thinking about that. So I don't know how to explain, why I did it. I just think that the moment just snapped, and I tried to backtrack, and I didn't know how to backtrack anymore. I kept going forward, and now I sit back and think about, having the time, sitting in prison, being away from people I cared about, being, really gave me a chance to really look at myself. And I'm not gung-ho. I'm not as smart as I thought I was. I couldn't do things without help. But at that moment, I thought I could. I thought I could take care of things by myself. And now, hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say that. But like I said, I hope never, ever, 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 ever to to do any more harm to anybody.
These people are permanently affected by this, you know, it's not gonna go away.
Yes, sir.
You know, you did work at their home previously, right? Is that how you knew these people?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so you've done work at other homes too. You were a carpenter, right? By trade, you know how to do carpentry work?
Yes, sir, flooring, I did a lot of,
So
stuff in
why out of all of your customers, why did you choose these people?
once again, I thought I was gonna, they had the means to help me. I wanted to do, I needed 20,000 to pay back my girlfriend's family. I could have asked my parents for it. No, would have been a lot of yelling, would have been a lot of screaming, but they would have helped me. I just thought this was the thing I needed to do, and I pay them back. You know, they call my insurance company, or they call their homeowners and say, you know, I did fraud. Once again, the thinking was wrong. The thinking from the very beginning was wrong. But when it just snapped, and I can't get myself to that position ever again.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that, you know, it sounds like because you're working at their house, you recognize that these people had the financial means to probably provide you the money, and that's why you selected them.
Yes, sir.
Right. Had you ever thought of doing something like this before?
Never, sir.
You ever
Never,
stolen
ever.
money? You ever stolen money or hurt people in the past?
No, sir. I did some worthless checks when I was in the military. That was just bad, stupid financial thing. They gave me probation 3 years. I did it. I paid them all off in a year, little over a year, and they expunged the case. That was about the worst things I've ever done prior to this.
Okay. What was your job in the military? What kind of work did you do there?
I was Signal Corps, 31 Foxtrot.
Do you operate in radios or satellites, that kind of thing?
I did the nodes it was signal between one unit and the next unit. I was usually stuck with the brigade. My units usually, my operator system usually with the, no, I was with the land.
Okay. You speak more than one language?
Yes, I speak Vietnamese fluently.
Okay. I'm going to continue on with the questions, sir. But during the time you've been incarcerated, have you had a job in there?
I've had a job on every occasion except this one. I just got hired for infield grounds right now. But for the 5 months prior to that, I volunteered with the paint crew to help paint the mural in the visiting room. So I always stay busy.
So do those things that you're talking about, the grounds and the waiting room, does that require an outside clearance?
Yes, sir.
Do you have that? You have an outside clearance?
Yes, sir, I do.
I read that you want to move to Wisconsin. Can you just talk about that scenario, what that's going to be like when you're released?
I think that's the most optimal thing for me to be at, be close to family. My sister has a motel that she wants to renovate. I have the skill sets to help her with that. I want to pay her back for all the things she's done for me since I've been down, taking care of my girls, you know, always being there for me financially and emotionally. I want to be able to give back to them. But secondly, it helps me because it's a small community. It's quiet. It'll get me where that's my lifestyle before. So I'll be better there than any other place.
Okay. So, but you're not gonna, sister's not gonna be your sponsor. You're gonna live with your parents. Is that right?
Yes. Well, that's my sister's home, but I'm going to be living with my parents.
Okay. But your sister's had some trouble in the past with the law also, is that right?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay.
No,
Maybe, I don't know, I read through, I thought there was some situation with your sister.
no, I don't believe so.
Okay, yeah. How do you think you've changed? You've been incarcerated for a while now. How do you feel different now from when you entered into the facility?
I actually can say that I didn't find anything different. I actually found myself, that I went back to who my parents taught me to be. I got a slower paced life. The things that they taught me, that the values they taught me resonates more now that I see. The things I teach my kids, my girls, resonates more. All the hustle and bustle, the fast paced life doesn't intrigue me. So I didn't change in a way that I can describe it. I changed back to who I was, or who I should have been. And that helped me a lot to really center myself.
Okay, you talked about your family and your children. Where are they? What state are they in?
I have one in California. My eldest is in New York City, and my youngest is now in Louisiana.
So you have 3 children,
Yes, sir.
and this is from 3 different women,
No, all same mom.
but they live in 3 different places.
But they're all older now. My oldest is 28, so she changed jobs from California to New York.
Okay.
The youngest stayed with her mom when I got incarcerated. The 2 eldest went with my sisters to take care of. So my youngest wanted to stay with her mom, and she's been down there since then. I'm hoping to that she come up and be with me up there. But it's a small town for a 21-year-old. It's going to be a chore to get her up there.
So do you talk to them on the phone? You talk to your family on the phone?
Yes, sir. I talk to my kids. At least they're always busy. My eldest especially is busy, but I keep in kind of communication with them all the time through my middle daughter. She's the one that picks up the phone every single time I call. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
So do you have any family or friends in Connecticut still, or no? There's no one here.
I have friends, but nobody here that I have friends that are supporting me, but my best bet is in Wisconsin,
Okay.
close to my family.
Does anyone ever come to visit you?
They came once or twice. There was a lot of crying, so we kind of nixed that right away.
Okay.
I just didn't want them to have to go through this every single time. Our phone conversations are great, so, and it's a distance for them to get it here from before they were in Wisconsin, then to California. It was just a distance for them to get here.
Yeah. So I see that you took in your management class. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you tell us what you took away from that, what you learned, and how, what tools you gathered that might help you?
Well, I found out that I'm a stuffer. I stuff my feelings down deep, and then when it explodes really bad. So now I've changed that into where I don't get angry very easily in the first place. My fuse is really long, but now the one thing I've always been hesitant about is arguments. I don't like arguments, but now I can talk to somebody. If the situation you resolve right there, that's great. If it doesn't, it's over. I just don't leave it inside me anymore. But I didn't realize I was a stuffer before. I stuffed all my feelings down. Nowadays, I just don't do that anymore. It's not productive.
Okay. What about the Voices program? Do you remember that? Can you talk about it a little bit?
Voices was one of the best ones I took away. We got a chance to do some role playing And it really opened up my mind, not just the thinking about the harm that you do, but it's the long-term harm that we really don't think about, you know. That's why it resonates every day. That thought process, that moment runs through my head every single day. That's why it kind of dictates my every single day. Because I remember the harm I did, not just the moment of the harm, but the long-term harm. So I try to leave each day trying to help somebody better themselves. In a way, I'm selfish because that helps me. Helping them helps me.
So you have 3 children. I mean, have you thought about if something like this had ever happened to your child? There was a child involved in this.
Yes, like I said, it resonates every single day. Every moment of these things comes back to me. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. No, if I don't want it on my kids, why would I want this to happen to anyone else? So, yeah, it's something that I think about all the time. It's not something that I just brush off to the side. It controls my days.
So when I read through, the report and the statements and some of the documentation, it sounded like you were torn a little bit. You had gone in and out of the house a couple of times prior to finally, to doing something. What was going through your mind at that? You went in and then came out, went back in, went out, came back in. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I didn't want to ask for help. So once again, the stubbornness inside me is just, I don't want to do. I thought I could take care of it, but I didn't want to take care of it. I really wasn't expecting anyone to be home that day because I had come the day before at 2:00. I said this one time, if no one's there, I'm going home. I'm going down to my dad's. Now, if no one's there, when she answered the door, it kind of threw me back. And I don't know. We had talked about this in groups and stuff like that, and I think a part of me just didn't want them to be there. So I didn't have to go through with anything and just then leave. But it did happen, and I can't take that back now. I know I did go through with what I had to do, and it just was stupid. There was no need for that. There was so many other alternatives, or so many other means that could have taken care of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like the victim, through probably just bare survival mode, talked you into going to the bank. From what I can gather, I mean, you wanted to stay at the house. What were your plans when the rest of her family came home? What were you going to do? You stayed.
I didn't really have a plan. That's the problem. I just thought I needed the money. That was it. I really didn't even. Now, in the end, the result was exactly the same. I was going to lose the other side of of her kids and her. So the thinking was just not there. And it's just, once again, things that I should not even think about, I did.
So, I mean, it's a struggle. Reading this is a struggle for me. It's very difficult. It's a terrible, violent, life-changing crime and experience these people had to endure.
Sure.
I mean, what can you say to us, that you're not going to make these kind of poor decisions again? How can you say that to us?
I've gotten support. I've been able to open myself up now that I couldn't do before. All that gung-ho, I can do it myself thing is gone. It humbled me. The whole incident humbled me. And I don't need things like I did. I won't put myself in a position like that. Right now, I have a philosophy if I have an idea that I think is good, whatever I think is I want to do, I ask people that I trust. If two people tell me that I'm doing wrong or that my thinking is wrong, I stop. If three people tell me that I have a good idea, then I continue with my idea and continue to do what I do. But that is my thinking process now. I don't know. I don't have to do it on my own anymore. I have people that I trust, and I didn't think I needed it before. I had my circle, my girl, my kids, and that's all I needed. But in reality, I need friends. I need support system. I need things that I didn't have before. And that's the only way that it's going to keep me out of trouble all the time, is making sure I stay with the people I trust.
Well, having support from your friends and family that you can count on is certainly something that's important, you know. So sure, those are all the questions I have right now. I'm gonna pass along to my colleagues, and I'm gonna listen to their questions and your answers from them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. So, Mr. Dunn, okay, so there appears to be, I guess, some discrepancies in what you've been saying to my colleague in your discussion and versus the original or the official documents that were reviewed. It's my understanding that you asked the victim, you told the victim that your car broke down when she opened the door the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
And you asked to use the phone. And then, so you had 3 opportunities, in my opinion, to walk away from this and
Yes,
not
ma'am.
harm this victim. You said just when you were speaking to him that you were hoping that they weren't there. So when she opened the door and you left, you had an opportunity to really not go through with this.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it was on the 3rd time that you got the courage to walk in there and attack her. What made you think that she would not listen to your demands without your having to physically hurt her?
I could have walked away. I should have walked away. And that's the thing. I definitely should have walked away, but I didn't. And that's what hurts the most.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, honestly, and I have to be honest that I'm sick of hearing how this has impacted you. Honestly, I don't, you know, you're being hurt and all those things. While I can sympathize with that, you know, our entire system would change because of home invasions. You know, you choked this lady so viciously that she had swelling to her neck, her eyes were bludgeon red because you cut off her airflow. And had you killed her, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
And while I can appreciate all the efforts that you've made, sir, towards changing your life and turning this whole thing around, you know, you received the commutation. And it reduced your sentence from 20 years to 4 years. To 16 years.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so you received some sort of, I guess, validation I don't, it's not validation, but I just feel like you received recognition already for your behavior there in the facility and all the things that you've accomplished thus far. And this poor child, you know, I mean, I hear you talking about your children and you're so happy. That child that was involved in this didn't get that chance. He is forever scarred. You know, I mean, this was just ridiculous to me. And then you said that you were using this money because you had some business investment or something. But in fact, you actually went and spent it and bought a laptop or something for your kid. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what was the real reason that you needed this money?
That was the real reason. I gave it to them
To give it to your kids.
to give it back to her family.
I mean, and then you really you made her write out checks, and this could not have been a spur of the moment thing, sir. It just couldn't. And when my colleague asked you what you did, you went on to say, well, I wasn't thinking, and that's not what he asked you, though. He asked you what you did. And what you did was barge into this innocent lady's house, almost choked her to death, tied her up for hours, asking her for money, telling her, and then when waiting for her kid to come home so that you can tie him up and and if her husband came home, you were going to tie him up too and stuff them all inside a closet or something. And you had this whole plan.
It wasn't a plan. It was I didn't know what to do afterwards. Once I did it, I shouldn't have hurt them. I shouldn't have done anything in that.
This was really, honestly, I agree with my colleague that it was so disturbing to read. It really was. But I really am happy that you've taken advantage of the time that you've had there in the facility, sir. I really do believe that you are sincere in your regretting doing this. And I think that I can appreciate that, your remorse. But I just am not sure that warrants your remorse and your actions thus far warrants your being released early. So that is my position. You don't have probation to follow your sentence. You have special parole. Do you know if you have to pay back that $4,000 or $5,000 that you spent?
No, ma'am, I don't know, but I will. I have no problem with that.
One more question, and then go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
So that's the least I can do.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with any of that. That's just.
I don't think they're hurt. I don't think that the victims really are hurting for the money. They're hurting because of their experience. So while I can appreciate that your family is hurt and you're hurt, and it really is, their lives are forever changed. So just tell me one last thing. How does one suffer from seasonal bipolar?
They say during the seasons, my waves are more up and down than normal.
Who's they?
Psychiatrists.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was diagnosed as. Like I said, I don't know enough about it, but I know that
I've never heard of such.
Yeah, my middle daughter has seasonal bipolar too, because we've looked into her. So
I didn't see any medical documentation to solidify that. So let me see if my colleague, Ms. Turner, has questions.
Yes, Madam Chair, just a few for Mr. Doan.
Yes, ma'am.
How much money was it that you owed?
I owe 20,000, ma'am.
And why did you owe that money?
Because I had borrowed them there was a so-called friend that wanted to borrow money from us to do some insider trading. And I said, okay, I only have 10,000. So I borrowed the 20,000 from her family because we were trying
to do insider trading.
I think that's what he said. He said, I got a good deal for you. No, I said, okay. I was naive and thought that, no, this was going to help we're gonna open a small
Okay, so
restaurant for them.
you thought your friend was presenting you with a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yes,
And so
ma'am.
you got yourself into debt in order to try to get rich quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that doesn't happen in real life to us ordinary people.
I know now, ma'am.
And you know, if somebody tells you insider trading, that should set off a lot of red flags because that's illegal, sir.
I didn't even know anything about that.
Yeah. Well, you weren't a young man, so you know you have some responsibility to, you know, understand the choices that you're making. So, do you know what it means to minimize, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay, to make something seem less serious or important than it really is?
Yes.
Okay. So you today and at sentencing have repeatedly used the word mistake,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
this crime was a mistake. And I'm going to argue to you, sir, that these were choices that you made, a series of very bad choices.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
mistake is like forgetting to return a library book. You know, you went to someone's house, you know, with malintent and caused a lot of harm. So it's much more than a mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
You said at sentencing, I would never have hurt you and I never will, to the victims. Did you not understand that you had already caused hurt?
Yes, ma'am. I know.
Okay. And you understand that the hurt was physical, emotional, psychological? You took away their sense of safety in their home?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure this victim never answers her front door without fearing you're on the other side of it. I'm sure her son never came home from school without a lump in his throat thinking, where's my mom? Is she safe? So the harm was put into motion on that fourth time that you knocked on her door, never asking her about engaging in insurance fraud. You just put your arm around her throat after you closed her door and started strangling her. You understand that? You know, you can say here that you went there to try to engage them in insurance fraud. You never even started the conversation. And you did, as my colleague pointed out, you had 4 opportunities to change your plan. And every time she opened that door, she opened it with graciousness. She got you water, she got you an umbrella, she let you use the phone in the bathroom. And all the while, you're just building up your courage to overpower her and steal from them. So you take her to the bank, you go together under duress. She goes to the teller and she can get $10,000 in cash. And she walks away from the teller and she gives you the cash. Is it still your position, Mr. Doan, that she gave you the money and that you didn't steal it?
No, it isn't.
Okay, but you realize that that's what the records say, that you denied stealing from her because she handed you the money under duress.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. At that time, I understood.
Okay. So today you said you wanted a chance to express to the victim that you would try to do no more harm and that you hope for forgiveness. Did I hear you right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know what comes before forgiveness?
No, ma'am. What?
Remorse. You know, I can't even imagine, or I try to imagine what this victim went through. At one point in the to the police, she said she was afraid that you might sexually assault her. And the whole while she's watching the clock thinking her son's coming home and how is she going to protect him? And then after you've tied them both up, you say, I'm taking you both to the basement. Can you imagine the sheer terror that they both felt? You're taking them to the basement, you know, what, never knowing what your final intent was going to be. It's just shocking. It really is. And then you sit here today and you tell my colleague, you hope to never do any more harm to anyone. I'm not gambling on hope, sir. I'm really glad you have 5 years of special parole to follow. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. So, Mr. Dunn, we're done with our questions. Give us a few minutes to talk about your case, and we'll give you our official decision, okay?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
Mr. Stauskas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as we've all stated, this is just, a horrendous crime. And, while Mr. Doan, Desiree Lowe has done some programming, he does minimize a little bit on some of the things that transpired. And he has received a commutation and reduced the sentence by 4 years. He has some special parole to follow already, so he'll have supervision. I'm not able to get past the nature and circumstances and the impact this has had on the victim's family. So to me, it's a denial thing.
It's a denial for me as well. I really do believe that at the end of the day, Mr. Dunn is going home early anyway, because he would have still had an additional 4 years on his sentence. And while I appreciate the great work that he's done in the facility, I too cannot be past the nature of his crime. So my vote will be to deny as well. Ms. Turner?
It's unanimous, and I would also include inadequate evidence of offender change. I don't have a great deal of confidence in what I've heard from Mr. Doan today about his ability to go out and not have moments where he snaps and his mind doesn't think properly, and a commitment to never harming is not. I don't have the confidence.
Do you have any issue with that?
No.
So with regard to Cong D DOC 386888, I move to deny discretionary parole based on the nature and circumstance of his offense and inadequate evidence of offender change as discussed here. I further move to set the following conditions as his self-parole conditions. He has 5 years to follow. He is to have no contact with the victim and or family. Her initials are LW. He asked to go to Wisconsin to be with his family, so we're going to the interstate unit to Wisconsin and add the halfway house if that's needed. Is there anything else?
Yes, per the court, a mental health evaluation and treatment is deemed necessary.
Mental health evaluation. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So, Mr. Doan, you receive all of this in writing. So we set your special parole conditions. You'll finish the rest of this sentence out, and then you'll go out to your family. Okay. Good luck to you, sir.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
This concludes the hearing on the Cong D DOC 386888.
All right, and they denied, and we'll go over the information on this case, and it's infuriating. It's sick. It's crazy. He's only got like another 2 years in the sentence because of the commutation just 6 months ago. And it's like, where do you start? One is, I think that this guy is one of the more dangerous that we have seen. If you can have somebody go to someone's house, tie up a 50-year-old woman, wait for her 13, 14-year-old son, we'll double check, come home from school, tie him up too. And all of this for some crazy plan, by the way, where he made them sign a contract saying that they invested the money in him or lent him the money. He somehow in his rational, sober mind thought that would be a good idea, that people would believe that he has his contract. So surely this was a good deal. And it's like someone who is so broken, they are not safe in the public. They are not safe to be around, because when the rationality is gone, there's no common sense. There's no predictability. There's no guarantee that he won't do another stupid thing. What has changed from then until now? Programs won't solve it. Nothing will solve it. He's dangerous. And he puts on this little voice and he shrinks up his little persona, and it's just a manipulation tactic. It's like when you have a puppy and the puppy knows what to do when it wants its food. It knows what to do when it, wants to go on a walk. It's just like he probably got away with it for a long time in his life. Makes himself look weak. I bet you he didn't look weak when he was strangling his 50-year-old mother, when she's sitting there in terror. Oh, I bet he was. And it's crazy why they even commuted it. They commuted the sentence and said, you know what, it did feel like a long time. You were in there a long time. Some of you might ask, why are the victims not here? Why are they not standing up? They made powerful victim impact statements. You see in the records, and that this has changed their lives forever. This has changed their lives in ways that only those who have experienced something like this might be able to imagine. But the way that she with her son, her baby coming home, all the second guesses that she must have put herself through, all of the fear and regret and the fear in that boy. I mean, it could be they weren't notified about this. It's possible. I mean, they would have to happen twice at the commutation and the parole hearing, but it does happen. We've seen it happen many times. It could be that they were just too afraid. You got to think about it. Even getting a letter in the mail and opening it up and seeing the person's name, it could probably put you into the hospital. We have heard people say that they have been put into the hospital just from receiving the letters. Now, let me go over this. Thank you, Sir Richard. This is written in 2018. And by the way, he's been filing appeal after appeal. He has a recent appeal as of 2021. This guy is not left it alone in the courts. A man who forced his way in a home 2 years ago and tied up and terrorized a mother and her son were sentenced to 20 years in prison, which is a good sentence. And I'll talk about why Connecticut takes home invasion so seriously. It's more serious than other states in a moment. So he pled guilty earlier this year to home invasion, 2 counts of first-degree kidnapping on a special probation for 5 years after his release. That's a special parole thing for the crime that occurred on 2011. His victims wanted longer prison sentences, prosecutor Robin Krajewski told Hartford Superior Court, but otherwise agreed to the plea bargain. He initially faced 3 more felony charges. I mean, again, here's another example of how the victims wanted more, but they agreed to the plea bargain. And I think the way to say it is not they agreed to the plea bargain. It's probably that they were coerced into the plea bargain. They were pressured into the plea bargain. They're sitting there and they'll have the DA across them saying, you don't want to go to trial. Here, just take the plea bargain, 20 years. And that's what I would believe happened. Now, before sentencing hearing proceeding, Alexander had to deal with a handwritten motion from Doan seeking to dismiss his lawyer and withdraw his guilty plea. So here's the game. Right before the sentencing hearing, he played a game. This is who we're dealing with, right? He put the family through this. This is who we're dealing with. He said, I want to dismiss my lawyer and withdraw my guilty plea. He claimed he did not understand the plea agreement or the charges he was pleading to. And he claimed his lawyer did not explain the charges to him. This is a clown, a manipulative, schemy snake. Doan also said he believed the home invasion charge against him and his penalty were too severe. Alexander told Doan his claims were not credible and denies the motions. As to his complaint about the home invasion charge, she said that his actions fit the definition of the law on home invasion and that the charge was appropriate. She called his desire to get out of the deal buyer's remorse. And this is why they should have just thrown the book at him. Now, he told the judge that Doan had done work for the victims, Leslie and her son, 50 and 14, and that when he had financial problems, saw them as a source of money. He forced his way into their home, choked Wayne, tied her up, and tied up his son when he arrived from school as well. The ordeal ended after Wayne took Gu to the bank, withdrew $20,000, and then drove him to Vernon. I mean, this is his brilliant plan. And she did talk herself, but she probably did save them by saying, no, because what he was doing, I think he was writing checks. And she said, no, let me just get you cash. Now, in Vernon, before his arrest, Doan called police to ask questions about his actions and also called the victim's husband, to whom he apologized and offered himself as a slave for life. Again, it's like this manipulation. It's like, oh no, what I did was wrong. I'm gonna get caught. So, just let me be your slave for life. I thought I was going to die that day, Wing said in court. And see, she shows up to court for sentencing. You think, again, that's why I don't think she was notified, but we really don't know. My son would not have a mother to care for him. My husband, a wife to grow old with him. She said that she fought Doan with all her strength, but he squeezed her neck tighter and tighter. It took a year to recover from injuries she suffered during the struggle, and she said that she continues to feel nervous and unsafe even in her home. She urged the judge to put this evil person with no herd and soul in prison for the maximum time allowable. And there are some people you feel just are dead inside. There is no soul there. Gu told the judge that he had trouble trusting others and also feels unsafe in his home. I hope he knows how much pain and suffering he has caused us, he said. Doan's defense attorney, John O'Brien, and Doan is remorseful and ashamed by his conduct. He said Doan was in desperate straits, having lost money to a scammer and feared losing his own family. Through a combination of forces, many of which were beyond his control, he lost his mind in October and November of 2011. Doan told the judge that he wished he could take back everything he did that day. I never intended to hurt anyone, he said. Please forgive me for everything. I'm not a bad person. I'm not evil. I just snapped. No, sir. The judge did not buy it. Neither do I. You are evil. To do that, you are evil. There are so many things you can do when you're desperate and crazy to steal money. I mean, that is not one of them. You could have robbed a bank. I mean, that would have been bad in itself. But like, you could have. That's an approach a desperate person could do. I mean, you can try to burglarize an establishment when no one's there, but you're going to go into a home and choke a mother and then tie her up and then tie up her child? Are you, no, you're evil. You thought they were weak. You probably enjoyed that moment of power. Although Doan had a minor criminal history, he recognized it. Minimizing his misdeeds, the judge said she called him a sociopath. Those are the judge's words, not mine. And said he is a sort of person society needs to be protected from. And the idea that this commutation board wouldn't have just looked at the judge's statement before saying, yeah, we'll give you 5 years off. Why not? It's scary. It's scary. There's no reason he should get any time off. Mr. Doan is criminal who can come close to the victim and inflict serious injury. Alexander said that, in a way, makes him more dangerous than a person with a gun who stands some distance away. Doan also has an unfortunate, uncanny ability to rationalize his evil with an apology. Those are the words from the judge that I could not agree with more, and I imagine you feel the same way. And again, this is a strange thing about Connecticut outside of other states that we cover. Connecticut holds the power themselves. They have the power to commute sentences without having the governor sign off on it. They withhold this awesome power. And we saw just the end of that last commutation hearing, but I'm telling you, that was all you needed to see. It was an hour long, but I cut it. They did not dive into anything. They really just felt, yeah, you know, it's a long time. He's got a good prison record. It's that's quite amazing. Let's let you out, and disregard even the statement from the judge. Disregard, really circumvent justice, the judiciary. These people on this board, many of whom, when you look at their qualifications, it's shocking. One of them was just a history teacher for his entire life, a middle school history teacher. That's it. And they are making decisions that are overruling judges that are elected by their constituents. It's dangerous. It's crazy. And really, in my opinion, it's all about the agenda that Connecticut is pushing with their DOC. They brag about having low incarceration rates. They brag about rehabilitation. They brag that their whole system is working, that they're brilliant. And in order to come up with those numbers, they have to find ways to have people serve less time. They have to find ways to not revoke people. They have to find ways to parole and parole and parole and parole, because the numbers, the data, it needs to line up. Now, the minimum mandatory sentence in Connecticut for a home invasion is 10 years. And that's because of this case, the Cheshire murders. When this happened in 2007, Connecticut, the people in Connecticut, they were pissed, to say the least, right? So in a nutshell, this family was ravaged, murdered, essayed. He lost everything. I think he was the only survivor, the father. They broke in, essayed the 11-year-old, burned down the house, tied up the survivors on a bed and lit them on fire. And after that happened, and I can put the link to this if you want to see it. And they also, what they did is they had taken them to get money. So it was a very similar case in the sense that at least they had gotten to the home, they tied them up, they took them out there to get money. And then Connecticut, the people of Connecticut were rightfully outraged. And then there was noise, you know, the megaphone, and the politicians had to look tough. So they said, in Connecticut, a home invasion, regardless of what happens, someone goes into your house and you were there, and it's a home invasion. That's what they're indicted for. It's 10-year minimum. The judge cannot give less than 10 years. And what I think is interesting about this is that, again, it just goes to show that when people get pissed, politicians listen. They all want to look tough in front of their constituents, and they make deals. They could do the same thing for carnal knowledge of juvenile. They could do the same thing for kiddie stuff, but they just don't. And they don't because there's not enough noise. And if we can make enough noise, we can have those laws updated. And yeah, it's interesting. You know, I just double checked right before I was going to let you go. The next two states, Connecticut and New York and New Jersey, minimum for home invasion is 5 years, not 10. You know, again, it's just, isn't that funny? But there you have it. And with that, I'll let you go.
That this crime was a mistake. And I'm going to argue to you, sir, that these were choices that you made. A series of very bad choices.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
mistake is like forgetting to return a library book. You know, you went to someone's house, you know, with malintent and caused a lot of harm. So it's much more than a mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
You said at sentencing, I would never have hurt you and I never will, to the victims. Did you not understand that you had already caused hurt?
Yes, ma'am. I know.
Okay. And you understand that the hurt was physical, emotional, psychological. You took away their sense of safety in their home.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure this victim never answers her front door without fearing you're on the other side of it.